Okay, hello second graders. Today we're going to be looking at lesson 8-7. They're going to be asking us to tell time before and after the hour. We're going to find that on page 479. So if you can please take out your books and your pencils. The book's upside down here. So I'm going to turn it around and then I'm going to share my workspace with you here. So you can see that we are on lesson 8-7. Daniel is on that page. 479 is the page number. There's some clocks here with a workspace, and I'm going to read while you follow in your book. It says, both of these clocks show the same time. How many different ways can you say this time? Write each way. Okay, so we can see, if I look at my analog clock, again, to review, the little hand is the hour hand, and that one is the one that we look at first. So my hour hand is between 6 and 7, and we know that when the hour hand is between two numbers, it is in that smaller hour. Okay, so in this case, the smaller hour is 6. So we're at 6 for our hour, and then the minute hand counts by 5s, and we count the jumps, right? So we're starting here at the top, and we're going to jump until we get here, counting by 5s. Here we go. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. Okay, so our hour is 6 and our minutes are 45. So one way we can read this clock is saying that it's 6:45, and you can see that's the same time that they have in the digital clock. Okay, that is one way that we can read this clock. Another way, and you may hear people refer to the time as minutes before the hour or minutes after the hour. So if I look at my minute hand here, I see that my minute hand, it's ticking along, right? And it's getting very close to 12 o'clock, which will be a new hour. Once it gets here to the 12, to the 12, it'll be the next hour, which will be 7 o'clock. Okay, so another way that I can read this clock is by telling how many more minutes until the next hour. Again, it still counts by 5. So if I'm here and I count by 5s, it sounds like this: 5, 10, 15. So in this case, there's 15 more minutes until the next hour, which is 7 o'clock. So another way to read this clock, which would be to say it's 15 minutes until 7 o'clock. 15 minutes to 7 o'clock. I could say it that way too. 15 minutes to 7 o'clock is another way to read this. Okay? All right, one other way I want to show you. I have my clock here on my whiteboard, and you can see that I divided my clock into even sections of 4 even sections. So if I put some dotted lines going straight down and dotted lines going across, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 even sections. Each of those sections is 15 minutes. Okay, I have 5, 10, 15 minutes in the first section, 5, 10, 15 minutes in the second section, 5, 10, 15 minutes in the third section, and 5, 10, 15 minutes in the last section. Okay, so another way that we can think about this is that we have 4 quarters to the clock. That means it's divided into 4 equal pieces. Okay, so keeping that in mind, if I come back to my clock here, I see that my minute hand is right in this quarter section, this last quarter. So another way that I can read this clock is to say it's a quarter until 7. right? So I could say it's 15 minutes to 7, or I could say it's a quarter to 7. That would be another way to say it. So I'm going to go ahead and write that here. A quarter to 7. And that is another way to read that clock. Some of you may be making a connection there between the term quarter, which we associate with coins also, right? And we know that there's 4 quarters in a dollar. And we just also saw that there are 4 quarters on a clock, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 quarters. Okay, so you may be drawing connections there as well, which is great. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn to the next page, and they're going to review a little bit more about different ways to read a clock with us. At the top it says, look at the times, count by 5s to tell the time. What are other ways to name the same times? Okay, so my first clock shows 1:15, but another way that I can read it is by saying it's 15 minutes after 1 o'clock, right? Because I'm here, here's the tip of my pen. I'm here in my 1 o'clock hour, but I'm not at 1 o'clock. I'm 5, 10, 15 minutes after 1. So it's another way to read it, okay? And then again, thinking about that clock divided into 4 sections or quarters, another way I could say that is 1:15. Okay, let's look at the next clock. Now, one way to read this clock is to say that it's 1:30. Okay, another way I could say the same time is to say that it's 30 minutes after 1, because I'm in the 1 o'clock hour and 30 minutes have passed by. Okay, an alternate way to think about it is to say it's 1/2 Okay, so if I take my pencil and I draw a line going down and I cut my clock into halves, here's 1/2 and here's the other half, I can see my minute hand has gone half past that 1 o'clock hour. So 1/2 would be another way to say it. Okay, and then finally, this last clock shows us 1:50, and another way to think about that would be 50 minutes after 1 o'clock. Okay, because I'm in the 1 o'clock hour still, but I've already gone 50 minutes into it. Okay, now let's look at the next 3 clocks. It says times after the half hour are often read as times before the next hour. Okay, so this clock, this first clock, is at 3:30. Okay, that's one way to read it. Another way we could read it is by saying it's 30 minutes before 4 o'clock, because I have 30 minutes, right, before I get to the next hour, which is going to be 4 o'clock. If I look at my next clock, the time is 3, we're in the 3 o'clock hour, 3:45 is the time. So I can read 3:45, or I could say it's 15 minutes before 4 o'clock, right? 5, 10, 15 minutes, it'll be the next hour, which is 4. So 15 minutes before 4 o'clock, or 3:45 is another way to read it, because if I cut my clock into 4s, I see there's 1 whole quarter before I get to the next hour. Okay, and then finally, 3:50 is the time on my last clock. And I could read it as 3:50, or another way to read it would be 10 minutes before 4 o'clock, because in just 10 minutes, it will be a new hour, which is the 4 o'clock hour. Okay, let's take a look at guided practice. It's asking us to complete. So both clocks show the same time, and then circle another way to say the time. Okay, so we have the 2 clocks here. They both need to have matching times, and then we need to circle another way to say that same time. So my first clock, my analog clock, shows a time of, let's look at the little hand first. I can see it's between 2 numbers, so I know I go to the smaller hour, and that's 2. So it's in the 2 o'clock hour. and my minutes are pointing here to the 6. So I'll need to count by 5s until I get there, right? We'll start at 12 and we're going to count the jumps. Here we go. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So my minutes are at 30, which means I have 2:30 showing on my clock. And 2:30 is one way to read this clock. Okay, what is another way I could read this clock? I have two choices. 2:30, okay, which means that I've gone halfway past the hour, which I have, or the other way shows 30 minutes before 2. Is it 30 minutes before 2? No, it's already in the 2 o'clock hour, right? So the only answer that matches is 2:30. Okay, let's take a look at number 2. So this time they tell us the digital clock, but we need to fill in the analog. So on the digital clock, it shows 6:45 as the hour, 6:45. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my hour hand. That's the little one. And I know it needs to go to the 6 o'clock hour. Okay, so there we are. If it's in the middle, that means it's going to the smaller hour. So I'm okay there. And then 45 are my minutes, and I know those count by 5. So I'm going to jump around until I get to 45. And remember, we count the jumps. So we're starting at 12. Here we go. Count with me. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. And then stop here. That's where I get to 45. That's going to be my big hand or my minute hand pointing to the 9. So 6:45 is where I'm at. Now 6:45 is one way to read that clock. What is another way? I have two choices. There's 6:45. Okay, is that right? So that would be saying that, remember, quarters is when I divide my clock into 4 pieces. So here's 1/4, 2, 3, and 4. So they're saying in a quarter of the clock, that's this much, I'm going to get to the next hour, which will be 7, 6:45. And that is true, right? Once it goes another quarter, I'm going to be at the 7 o'clock hour. So this one works. How about this one? 6:15. Okay, well, if it's 6:15, that means it would be just 1/4 past 6, which would be, the minute hand would be here pointing to the 3. It's well past 6:15, right? So the only answer that makes sense here is 6:45. Okay, all right, so we're going to get more practice telling time in different ways in our independent practice. The directions say complete so both clocks show the same time, then write the time before or after the hour. Okay, so you can see in numbers 3 and 4, they give you the digital clock time, and you need to fill in the analog hands to show the time. And then you'll fill in the blanks here to show another way to say that same time. Okay, and then in number 5, they give you the analog clock, and you'll fill in the digital time. And then fill in the closed sentence to show another way to say that time. Okay, and for today, let's just go ahead and focus on numbers 3, 4, and 5. And then we'll do more practice with telling time in our Google Meets. Okay, all right, guys, so I will be seeing you very soon. Until then, take care, okay?